Hey everyone, we're going to go ahead and bring the work group members in so that we can get them unmuted and ready to go.
Hi, Amber. This is Paul Burns from DOE. Just checking my mic. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes, thanks.
Awesome.
Hello.
Hey Julie, how are you? Or is
I'm good.
Julie?
How are you?
Yeah, good. Hi.
Good.
We are just taking a few minutes to let work group members in so we can get you all unmuted and ready to go. And then hopefully we'll start right at 1.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is 1 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started right away. I believe that everybody in the lobby is currently being admitted. Work group members, you should have been unmuted. At this time, we have disabled the chat, so if you're a work group member and you need something, please either use the little hand raise thing, or if you get cut off and you need some assistance, email me. It'll pop up on my phone. I'll see it, and then we can go from there. Let's see, and thank you again, and I'm sorry for the short notice. I know work group members, you did not have a lot of time, and I apologize for that. That is completely my fault. With the holiday weekend and everything, I didn't look at when I was actually scheduling the meeting and when I would need to tell you. So it has been publicly noticed since the 21st in the FAR, but I do apologize for not telling you sooner, and I am super thrilled that so many of you were able to attend today. So thank you for that. I don't see any hands raised, so I think everybody that needs to be unmuted is unmuted. We do have members of the public on the call. We will have time for public comments at the end of the meeting. So I don't have a ton for you today, but wanted to go ahead and talk about a couple things that have been happening. Our training is currently routing for approval within FDOE leadership. So, as those changes come back, if there's any content, like I'm not going to get with you about grammar changes, but if there's any content changes, we will address those together if they need to be addressed. So the two things I wanted to talk about today is just to give you an update. I have received a lot of emails from Florida Citizens Alliance group and from, I believe they're coming from the Moms for Liberty group, and other concerned citizens too, I'm sure. They don't always put their group, organizations, so I'm not completely sure, but of the ones that I've seen, those are the two ones that I've seen that have come through, and they're both pretty similar, but it's kind of a form email that I'm getting. They're concerned about inappropriate sexually explicit books in our school libraries. They want clear rules and parameters. They want us to follow statute 847.001 and .012. They want all books free of pornography and age appropriate. They're asking us to provide clear language on what defines appropriate literature. Providing, again, clear definitions, providing a list of prohibited terminology to accompany the above listed prohibitions, providing rules on who may make up the book review committees. They would like to require 50% parent representation. They want signatures of who ordered and purchased the books to be noted. Let's see, the report of the book review committee should be made accessible to the public and attached to each book housed in the catalog. And they want to allow for robust public discourse during the review committee meetings and set clear and defined disciplinary procedures that will be enforced on media personnel who purchase prohibited books following the approval of the clarified policy. And then again, the other email that I'm getting, just in general, they're asking us to define the terms more explicitly. They're asking for sensitive materials to be placed behind the media specialist or librarian's desk. Again, that would be the opt-in versus opt-out that we discussed pretty extensively, I thought. And provide a parent opt-in. And that's kind of it for that. So a large number of concerns from the public, I would say. Before we jump into the other part of the thing that I have to share with you today is we did have some slides by some of our parent representatives that I wanted to show to you and just bring it up for discussion with the entire work group. Before we jump to that though, any comments from the work group about the emails? Anything you're thinking, anything that, maybe we should consider including in the training at this point. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and speak if you wish.
Good afternoon,
like
everyone. Oh, go ahead.
The idea of the parent opt-in, we've taken it out of the training, so I think that should be included.
It could be included as an option, but it shouldn't be included as the end all be all. But I'm just going to say this. It's very frustrating that we all sat in a room together and made decisions. And then when we all leave, more discourse is happening without all of us in the room. And I believe that broke the sunshine law when people are working together on more slides that we were all not a part of. We all communicated in a room and looked each other in the eye. Are you okay with this? Are we okay with these slides as a work group appointed by the state of Florida? So it's
Yes,
very
we did. Yes,
frustrating that we're back here today when we all were in the room together.
Michelle,
Yes,
just
we
to
did.
jump in here, I agree. I felt some of those same feelings, just to be completely upfront and honest and clear with you all. However, after thinking it over, it does take some time. When you're grappling with some of these huge issues, it does take some time to think about how you really feel. And maybe I'm just guessing here that maybe some of these members, went home, thought about these issues and, considered, hey, I really do want, this part in the training, and just had other considerations that they wanted brought up. I mean, we were face to face for a few hours. And some of these issues were addressed then. And these are obviously things that they feel strongly about, and they, would like us to address them now. So I completely understand your frustration with the process, but when you're dealing with these huge issues, it just takes time sometimes to work through those processes.
But isn't a
Well,
library access a privilege that all citizens should have a right to? And by having an opt-in form, doesn't
for a
that?
second? I think let me just pause this and kind of summarize where we are, right? So we had some comments, but I think there was a parent who was not finished yet. Michelle made her comment, but who was speaking, that it was about the opt-in comment. I think you had another comment before we continued. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead, Ms. Beavers, because we didn't let her finish her comments before we jumped in. So I'd like for Ms. Beavers to go ahead and jump back in and finish her comments, and then I want to add a little bit before we continue. Ms. Beavers, go ahead.
Sure. So yes, we did go to the meeting and discuss this stuff. But at the meeting, the DOE lawyer was saying basically that this is such a high bar that we can't define it. Though that we really, all we need to do is just put the statute in there and say, look at the statute. And to me, that's not enough. And I can't argue with a DOE lawyer because I'm not a lawyer. But this presentation is designed to show them why we can't make this have any teeth. Why we can't go past simply, well, gee, look at the statute and follow it, because that means something different to everybody. And what the whole reason for this work group was to put us together to come up with some real material to guide librarians. And we don't have any. You have great material on the stuff about how to, taking care of books in the library and things like that. It was all wonderful material. And I didn't have a lot of input because I'm not a librarian, but I am a parent. And I can tell you what we're allowing isn't okay. And however you want to define it, something needs to be done to define it so that we can get these books into either behind the librarian's counter or out of our libraries altogether, because they don't follow our statutes. And we can dance around the fact all the time that we're going to say, gee, it's not really harmful to minors because we're going to say that the bar is so high to define what this is. Well, I can tell you, I've looked at a lot of these books and they're not okay. And so that was the whole point of this presentation, is to get it in front of the DOA and say, look, do you think that this book is gay is okay? And that one is the one that tells kids to go on to an app for adults and hook up and have sex with adults or kids. That to me is simply not okay. And that one is okay in some of our schools, because in that presentation, if you see, some schools have already said, oh, gee, that's okay. So if the DOE is trying to get that kind of material out of our schools, our presentation that we sent as a group doesn't do that. And that's the whole point of it, is that what we decided as a group is, as far as I could take it, and as far as I could go with the DOE lawyer saying that it's not definable. And so I'm not proud of that work, because that work is not what we actually were set out to go do. That work was fine in some aspects, but the true gist of why we were put here was to address CRT and sexually explicit in our libraries, and it didn't do that. So that's why it's there. Not because the group was a bad group. You guys did amazing work, and I did as much as I could within the parameters of what we had to work with. And that's the point, is the parameters are not okay.
Thank you, Michelle, for sharing your concerns. And I would like the group to address them if we can. Just one note that the task that we were presented with was not solely about the sexually explicit materials, the pornography issue. CRT is not part of that statute at all. That those portions 847, those harmful to minors statutes, I believe, are mentioned in or through HB 1467, which is now in statute, of course. But as a work group, we were tasked with doing many other things, which I believe that we have done with this group. And the part that's, been sticky ever since the inception of this group is that pornography section. So I believe we have done what we set out to do, except for maybe the pornography part that there's been some issues with. I'm going to open it up to the rest of the group.
And can I just say, Emma, before, I think the purpose, of why we have these meetings noticed and why we come back to them is to look at the training. So I would encourage the group to say, let's look at the additional slides. Like, I'm not sure the purpose is to debate on but what do we look when we look at those slides? What can be updated in the training, right? What are we proposing that would be potentially updated or changed or improved? Because as Amber said, when we all sit in a room, I think that's really a natural process, right? We do what we can, and then we do go back and often reflect and think about what are ways that we continue to improve. In education, we talk about continuous improvement, how we get better year after year after year, right? How we get better sometimes from quarter to quarter, how we get better from semester to semester. So I would challenge the group to say, based on the slides, what are slides that we could update, add, right, to potentially enhance the training that you might want to route. So that would be what I would say is, have the work group focus on what could we enhance or change in the training versus saying, well, I'm frustrated someone else went away and sent something. So I would probably caution folks, I'm not sure that's the reason we're here. It's to think about how can we improve the training, or what suggestions would the work group want to send forward to improve or modify the training is what I would say for folks to be focused on.
Dr. Burns, it's Christy Humberger. Could you possibly clarify something for me? In my district, my school board is ultimately in charge of everything that we do. And so they're taking a priority with putting books behind the counter and having an opt-in kind of situation. So when the work group came, is this something where it's the state, then the school board, and then individual people? Or is it a training from the state to allow our school boards to understand, as well as media specialists?
I'm not sure I fully follow what the question is, but what can you rephrase? I'm not sure.
So as we are discussing and as we were going through our training, or putting the trainings together, the school board is the ultimate decision making in my district. So, and of course they follow Florida state statute, but by finessing or adding some of these items that were being presented, does that take away my school board's right? So if we would put for example, if we would put something in there about an opt-in, or that books have to be placed behind counters, does that take precedence? So everybody in the state of Florida would have to do the same thing? Or would it still be left to school boards to do their individual, what's best for their community? Because obviously, once again, what's best for my community might not be best for, Michelle's community. Does that make sense now?
I think it's a fair question. What I would say to that is I'm not sure, because if you remember, I was in and out, right? I was more out than I was, in when you guys were in the meeting. So what I would say, Christy, is like I would want to see like where the wording was, right? So the opt-in, opt-out, I'm not sure if I really follow exactly what y'all are, right, what that process is about. So my thought would be, I think that's the point of the work group, is to think about what language would you want to include, right? And then, like, certainly as that's routed through, it's reviewed by lots of folks and folks will get feedback. But that's what the opportunity of this work group is, to say, hey, some members, we want to put this in, here's our rationale why, right? If some work group members don't want it, we'll certainly note that as well, right? But I think what I would suggest is think about, you guys as the work group will come up with and give your feedback on those pieces of where that language would be. I don't want to answer that question in generality about the opt-in, opt-out without seeing what the actual language is and where it'd be placed in the training. That's what I would say. Amber, are you frozen?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Look like you're on my screen. You're losing folks because we do have a few people.
I was just putting my hand up like this, so I don't know if someone else is in front of me. I don't want to jump the line.
Jennifer does have her hand raised.
Okay.
Jennifer, did you want to unmute and say something?
Yes, ma'am. So thank you. So just so I am clear, and I've been asking this question to our school board. I was told by our school board lawyer in Indian River County that federal trumps state, state trumps school boards. So if we are doing this training for the state and we say everybody who reviews these books, for example, has to wear purple, that is what they have to do. So if we change anything or add or subtract anything with this training, whatever comes from the state is what the individual school boards in each of the 67 counties have to do. So again, I asked that multiple times during our training, and that was the answer that I got, and hopefully that'll help answer the previous question.
Thanks, Jennifer.
I'm not sure if Amber's frozen because I can see Julie, Chris. Like I would go ahead and have Julie go, Chris, Jamie, because there's okay.
Yeah, Julie, go ahead.
So I'm still playing catch up. I'm just getting through the slides that were circulated today, but I guess it's sort of a differing view of ideology. I was under the impression that the slides we put together pretty much gave a sort of a baseline, like this is at least what districts must do, but we wanted to respect the autonomy of districts, as Christy was saying, what might work for her district is, districts differ around the state. So we wanted to be sure that we did not go so far that we inhibited a district's ability to best serve their own community, because they are the experts on their community expectations, interests, and so on. So I know it's a differing view, should this be viewed as sort of the basement, like you at least must do this, or you can go no farther? When we left the meeting, I was under the assumption that this was the bare minimum, but we were very clear to say that districts may and should develop their own protocols. And from the very quick look of the slides that I sent today, those are very, I like how concrete the suggestions are. I don't agree with all of the content, but the specificity of the suggestions, I think that's districts can do that on their own, but I don't know. I guess I want to maintain the district autonomy to be able to make those protocols on their own.
Just to jump in, When I was looking at the training and the task set before us, I looked at it as the state, we are telling districts what is in statute. Statute has to be followed, you know, no matter what the district policy is. Statute is the rule of the land. We have to follow that. And then some of the other things that we put into our training, I believe, put most of them as suggestions. Like, these are some suggestions for purchasing, because in Florida, we are a district-led state. Districts make their own decisions as long as it doesn't, you know, clash with what the statute says. That's how I took it. If I'm wrong, please let me know. And I think that some of what is in the slides that we should probably talk about pretty soon, because we're going to run out of time, could be put in as under suggestions. Like, districts can, you know, possibly, this can be a suggestion for the district if they want to implement it. But if it's not in statute, we can't, I mean, Dr. Burns, I don't know where I'm going with this, but if it's not in statute, I don't think we can say this must be done or must not be done. Is that correct?
Well, I do think you're asking a good question, Amber, at the end there around what authority we have, right, as a part of the training. And we certainly will work with legal and to be able to decide that. But I would still push, and I think we're still kind of reacting to comments, but I would push the work group to say, how would you modify the training? That would be what my focus would be. I do think that's a good question around the authority, right? And I will say, to be candid for Ms. Pippin, I'm not a lawyer, and I certainly don't know about, you know, I'll be candid about, you know, if her attorney said something, Trump something, I don't know those answers, right? Those for attorneys to help us figure out. But what I will say is, if there are work group members that feel like the training could be strengthened by adding certain components, that's what I feel like this work group should be discussing, is what components do we feel like we could or should add that would strengthen the quality of the training to be able to support schools and districts. So that's what I would be focused on. But I know other work group members have comments as well.
Chris?
I was actually going to start looking at the slides a little bit and make some comments about the slides. Two ideas that I think overall, it's not going to surprise anybody that I disagree with the vast majority of the slides. However, some pieces that I think that we could take from is that I don't know that we did mention any kind of state protocol of looking at the books that were put on that list. Probably, I don't know that we need to state exactly what they need to do with that list, but I think it is a fair statement that media specialists should be aware of that list that exists of books that were pulled from other counties.
Chris, that is in the training.
That is in the training. Okay.
Yeah, it says check Florida's list of books that have been removed due to a challenge in other districts. So that is in there.
There is a slide in there about the ALA awards, and the ones that are noted in there are actually ALA awards to adult books. And so a fair statement would be for those award books to note the age bracket that it's intended for, because the books that I believe the books that were noted in there, I could be wrong, but were ALA award books, but they were for adults, not for teens. And so it's important, and it's very accidentally easy to order books off of the entire list to note that the age bracket that is it intended for. And I also wanted to share that the articles that were listed in there had nothing to do with reading at all. I looked at each one. They were all about internet pornography, like flat out hardcore porn. And it is a very big leap to compare hardcore internet porn to a paragraph to a couple pages in a book, so I would, the articles really did not deal with reading at all. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. Amelia?
I think Jamie had her hand up before
Oh,
me.
I'm sorry.
Jamie Merchant.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Jamie, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
We can hear
Okay,
you.
great. I'm having trouble with my headphones, so I have no idea. Just like what happened at the beginning of this call, where immediately once Michelle started talking, people started talking over her. I feel like a lot of that happened during the meeting. And when you're with a group for an hour for 6 weeks and then 6 hours for one day, and that is a continuous habit, I mean, our opinions were clearly shut down. Our slides were watered down. The slides that I personally presented some of them were put in quotes with a statute, so they needed to be deleted. So the slides were watered down and deleted, and our parent input was not there. And so that's why I felt like there needed to be a different route. And Commissioner Diaz has the ultimate say, and then he and Senior Chancellor Oliva tasked myself as a parent with this obligation. And I wanted to make sure that I put the best foot forward for this task and fulfilled it to the best of my ability. So that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you for expressing that, Jamie. Now, Amelia.
I think I'm good, Amber. I just was curious about the district autonomy because of the comment that you had made before, because that's what I was under the impression about. And then also the opt-in and opt-out form, because districts have forms put in place, and that was what I was curious about, because you know, there are measures put in place and how we do purchasing and how we you know, we follow the guidelines with our red book that we're supposed to follow per the state, but then we, you know, we have how we do that differently in each district. And so I just was curious about that.
Let me just address too, which this may help Amber, and I think Amelia just brought it up in the question about the district autonomy. I'm not sure if I understand what that fully means, the district autonomy, but I will say, even though you may say a district has autonomy, right, districts have to follow the law and State Board of Education rule. So I just think that we have to, when we think about this notion of autonomy versus what they have to follow or not, I just want to remind folks, like, yes,
and I want to
right,
clarify,
I
do,
Can
that's, I
finish my
do
statement, though?
understand that.
Yeah, I just want to finish my statement of that we districts still have to follow state board rule and then Florida law, right? So just want to make sure that we were just kind of thinking in both buckets, right? Both buckets are have some validity to them.
Jennifer?
Yes, so I was pretty much going to say what Paul was going to say, and every time I hear, you know, districts have different, you know, things that they have, you know, going on, as far as, you know, we've discussed having like a more artsy studio or a vet tech program and things like that. I think that that's where definitely districts need to differ and, you know, be open to having those programs and those kinds of things, whether it be curriculum or library, you know, things for those programs. But again, we're stuck on the pornography and we're stuck on the sexually explicit content, and it's still not defined. It's still not defined. And like Michelle said, there are school districts still challenging books even without the training. And you have people saying, well, you know, I think that the author had good intent, so we're putting this book back on the shelves. Well, you know, 16 or 17-year-olds can read this, so we're going to only make this graphic sex scene okay for juniors and seniors. And they're not following the law because it's not defined, and nobody's willing to do that. So while you're getting this plethora of emails of asking to define it, that's where the breakdown is. And even with this training, if we were to put out this training today, there's no defined terms of that. So I feel still that we as a work group have to have these things defined. So anybody who's in the library challenge committee or whatever, you know, each policy and procedure that a district makes, it's defined. If it has, you know, this in it, it's unacceptable, not just for certain ages or, you know, this grade or that grade. If it's, you know, like she said, has Grindr, which is a sex act, you know, where they're trying to get children to go ahead and do that, or if it's a graphic rape scene, whether it's 1 page or 2 pages, it's still against the pornography and the sexually explicit content laws in that 847.012, which has been put out through our training multiple times. So that's where the breakdown is. And even if we don't agree, at the end of the day, these things have to be defined, or we're going to be in the same boat, once this training is approved through the DOE.
Thank you for your comments, Jennifer. We're going to go Julie and then Michelle, and then we do need to jump into those slides so that we can talk about each slide specifically. So Julie, go ahead.
Amber, I just had a process question. Since some of us are still working through the slides that were circulated today, will we be able to use next week's meeting time to take some time and kind of go, like, I've only looked at one or two of them. So I think this group does not lack passion, and I want to be able to put my best foot forward and provide some good constructive feedback.
Yeah, and we have the time open,
okay.
So we can use
okay.
it. Yeah, it's
okay.
So to be clear to everyone, it's the 6th, which is next Tuesday at 1 p.m. And then the 3rd, I believe it's the 13th, which is the following Tuesday, or is that the following? Yeah, the following Tuesday at 1 p.m.
Okay.
The 6th and the 13th. Michelle, go ahead. Michelle be first.
Okay. So a couple of things. This was designed to help the DOE understand what we're talking about. It wasn't necessarily targeted at our group. It was to let them understand why we have a problem with what we submitted and why we felt our hands were tied. We weren't allowed to put in there opt in, opt out, because it was either your slides only pulled from Julie's slides. It said our options were opt in. I'm sorry, opt out instead of opt in. So I felt it was very slanted in that. And since we couldn't give any suggestions, we didn't give any. And the problem is the DOE lawyer sat there and was unable to make any calls on what pornography is or what's acceptable to put in books and what's not. I mean, so we have no definitions. It's pretty hard to build a training around definitions when there aren't any. So the whole idea of this presentation was to let them understand why it's the way it is and where the problem areas are. And we understand, like, some of those are just simply suggestions of ways things could be presented and possibly have no place in our training. But it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't, we didn't target this to our group. We targeted it to them because some of these ideas are laws that need to be changed that we're not in charge of and that we don't have any ability to work with. And some of those why pornography is harmful slides, they have other studies that show that reading is actually a little bit more harmful than watching a picture because your brain is far more engaged in creating that picture inside your head than it is just simply watching something passively. So I do believe it, and the reason it says media on there is because books are part of the media process. So to me, all of that's relevant. This is actual damage that's causing our children, and whether you guys want to dance around that or not, I mean, I don't understand the reason for being so passionate of keeping this material in our libraries. I don't understand the philosophy of thinking that it's a good idea to put this in front of our 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders. They can get this material at any time in the public library. This is our safe space in our schools. This should be free of parental worry or stuff that you don't want your child to see. And at minimum, bit behind the counter. And we weren't even really allowed to put that kind of information in this training. And I think at minimum, you're talking about basement floor here, at minimum, we should have suggested, if you're concerned, if you think that this maybe crosses the line, number one, it should be out of the library, but if you think it is and you want to keep it in your library for whatever reason, then behind the librarian's counter is where it should be. It shouldn't be out for general population. And you can shake your head no all you want to, but that is the truth. Because if you ask parents who care about their children and don't want this in front of them, they're not going to say, I'm okay with it. It's just simply not going to happen. I have 6 kids. I have engineer children. I've been doing this for 37 years. I know what's good for kids. And I know that this material in front of children, we're talking 7th and 8th graders, some of this material's in front of that this book is gay, where they're telling them to go find people on Grindr. How can you defend that? And what you're doing when you don't define these terms is you're letting it happen. If you look in the presentation, it has a school district that looked at this and said, yeah, it's fine, no problem. And that's not okay. So our DOE, this was designed to let them wake up and say, gee, we really should give you tools. And those tools need to be definitions.
Thank you, Michelle, for expressing your opinions. I just wanted to say that I do respect your opinion as a parent and, you know, as a professional in what you do. And I completely apologize if you were saying that you felt like your opinions were not heard at when we met face to face or, you know, on our previous virtual meetings. And I apologize that you felt like that. I never meant to make you feel like that. And I don't think the
Amber,
rest of
I
the
wasn't trying to suggest just you.
No, I
I'm
know, I know.
the
I know you
DOE
weren't.
lawyer.
I
The
I
DOE
just-
leader basically shut us down. He basically said that, she said, I'm sorry, she basically said, we can't do that because we can't define it. And that wasn't you. That wasn't directed towards you. Understand. I have
the
no problem.
lawyer- Our legal counsel can only direct us to what is in statute.
Sure.
And I feel like that's where a lot of this like push and pull we've got going on is, you know, we're directed to look at statute and provide a training, you know, according to statute that says X, Y, and Z. But then on the other hand, there are all of these other issues. There are parents that are very upset about some of these other things that are occurring in schools. And the terms are not defined like expressly in statute the way that you're asking them to be. And we don't have the statutory authority to define them
Sure.
as an agency.
And I understand, but once
it-
he spoke, all of the committee members basically said, well, the lawyer told you we couldn't do it. So then it shut the door on any suggestion we had of opt-in. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Michelle, I think, and I did look at the slides that you and Jennifer, and I believe Jamie was part of this also turned in. And it'll be up to the work group, but I think that we could address some of these issues. And I think that we could possibly add, you know, opt-in as a suggestion to districts. You know, districts may provide opt-in or opt-out, you know, forms or access or whatever to some of these materials. That would be a district decision. We at the state, we cannot tell districts this is the direction you have to go because because of that district autonomy issue.
And I totally understand that, but
Okay.
that whole issue is why the DOE needs to be aware this is the problem. Like
Okay.
this is the crux of the problem is that we don't have definitions. Without those definitions, we're all of our hands are tied. We can't get anywhere and we can't stop with what I believe they're trying to stop, with what I believe we were tasked with. And CRT, I don't understand why you think that wasn't part of our training, because when we talk about not making any group feel less, that's what CRT was partially about. We didn't name it CRT with the task, but that's what they were trying to get at.
Okay. Well, at this time, let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen and we will go ahead and look at the training or the slides that were provided by Jennifer, Michelle, and Jamie, I believe. Okay,
My
so
final,
I'm gonna,
can I make one more comment as you're sharing the slides?
sure.
I keep hearing, and I wasn't in the room for this part, but you know, about the DOE lawyer, right, when someone spoke. So I'm hearing that as a sticking point. And so what I would say, again, I wasn't in the room, but what I would challenge this group to say is, okay, you may have heard that, right? And I'm not sure exactly what the context, what it was about, but I would probably set some of that aside and say, what would you want in there? Let's go ahead and put in there what folks would think they want. And then I do like the way Michelle was saying, like, maybe what I have said is maybe we put those things in there that we think. And then if there are still sticking points, maybe we say, like, to DOE staff, like further considerations, like we need to do, you know, we could suggest looking at A, B, C, D, E, F, right? So I think that's an option too, is to be able to capture both. But I guess that's why I don't know if we want to get hung up on that, like one person said one thing. And so we can, this work group, that's why you're here together. Let me tell you, you're not the first work group. They've all wrestled with this, right? It seems like, and I love the way you say y'all are passionate, right? Yeah, I should have heard the passion around standards, folks, right? I was there around get rid of Common Core, keep Common Core, right? And so folks often had this, you know, this kind of push and pull. The literature calls it the tension of a rubber band, right? People are pulled by the rubber band. But one thing that those work groups did was they said, listen, we feel like the wording should be this way. And so those work groups didn't shy away from making those suggestions, putting those in, because that's how we get to a better product, is by that push and pull of the word. Like, we may suggest A and it may not be exactly A when the commissioner looks at it, right? But I will say, I would challenge the work group to, let's look at what we can add and put it in there. And let's, kind of maybe take that off, set that aside a little bit of like what the lawyer said in that meeting, and focus on what do we think is the best product for training, and let's focus on routing that. That's what I would say.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out the best way to go through these. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like this was more instructions to us and nothing that, this slide that you weren't wanting it included in the training. Is that correct? Or maybe Jennifer, Michelle, Jamie, maybe one of you could kind of walk us through. Jennifer, go ahead.
May I make a suggestion, since the work group just got these slides and they haven't had time to look over it or anything? Could we discuss this at our next meeting? So this way everybody has a week to review the slides, make changes, make suggestions, cross it out. So this way, because you're going to be going into public comment in like 9 minutes, and that's not going to be enough time to go through these slides. So again, just a suggestion. If everybody, agrees, not agrees, that's fine. I just think that if we give everybody a week to go over it, maybe make some changes and reflect on it and be able to see it, and then come back and maybe discuss it next week.
That's a good suggestion. My only concern is that our deadline, our January 1st deadline, is rapidly approaching. I mean, it's December in a couple days. I think we can go ahead and do that, but I would still like to ask work group members, based on what you have been able to view of these slides, if there's any overarching theme, or like, is there anything that you've seen in here that you think, yes, we can include in the training? Is there anything in here that you've seen that, it's already in there, or, no, we can't include because XYZ? We can kind of start to maybe make a few of those notes and then really go into depth next time. Does that sound okay, Jennifer?
I'm fine with that. If the work group's fine with that, it was just a suggestion so people didn't feel like rushed and, not knowing of the material.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm just worried about our deadline, because we've got to get this in front of districts by January 1st, as you know. Chris, go ahead.
Yes, slide 9 would be where if you wanted to give options of what options about the ops, that would be where that would go. District have policies in place to ensure. That's where you would list potential options. And if we're listing opt-in, opt-out, grade level appropriate, just for 11th and 12th graders, that seems to be where those suggestions would go. I don't know if the group who sent this would agree, but that's where the parental rights page was. It says districts should have policies in place to ensure that parents have direct influence over their child's reading materials. It sounds like the parents would like some options given in the training. I don't know if I'm reading that correctly, but it sounds like that might be what they were.
You mean slide 9 of the one we already turned in, not this one? I think
correct. Yes. Yeah. The draft
Like,
slide.
Okay, 9 of our draft.
The one that said parental rights.
Yes.
I don't know, so, Michelle, I don't know if I'm correctly assuming that's what you're talking about is you're a big proponent of opt-in. Some people do opt-out, but that's where the options of ways to do parental rights could go.
Right. I mean, I think it's a good idea for the librarians to have these thoughts at their fingertips. In other words, what we can do if I think it's not a good book, but I still want it in my library, or I think it's maybe only appropriate for certain levels or something. And even that, I mean, a 9th grader might have a maturity of 9th grader, but so might a 11th grader. I mean, just because they're in a certain grade doesn't mean their maturity level is necessarily at that grade.
Okay, any other general comments about these slides?
I haven't read all of them, but just perusing this particular slide, you know, we need to have the facts. So that last paragraph or last sentence, you know, wouldn't be the kind of thing that we would want to add to the training. But I appreciate all the time. I agree. This is a very slippery slope, and I appreciate the time you took to put these slides together. I can't wait to read all of them.
But like I said, we did not focus this to be part of our training as a group. It was more of a letting the DOE know what the problem was that we had. So I wasn't suggesting that all this material needs to go in the training at any point.
So knowing that, then would you be able to come up and you, I mean, Michelle, Jennifer Pippin, and Jamie, with, and it could just be bullet points. It would probably be easier. Just list out the things that you want to see in the training. Would that be feasible to come up with, within the next week or so? And I'm not saying that all those things would be in the training, but it gives us a concrete thing to look at and say, oh, they want opt-in. Can we add it? And where can we add it? I think it would be an easier way to look at addressing these concerns than trying to parse some of these slides as to what you really want in the training versus the discussions that you said you wanted to have with leadership.
I think that's fair, to boil this down to more of a digestible thought process.
Okay, then if you wouldn't mind working on a bulleted list, and you can send it to me, things you would like to see in the training that are not already in the training. Because when I look through a lot of this, I go, oh, that's already in there. Oh, that's already in there. And I'm glad we're addressing some of the concerns that you've listed here. But it would be helpful just for our quick turnaround that we need to do, just to have a bulleted list. We want opt-in, we want, whatever. Just list them out, and then we can look at those one by one at our next meeting and see if we can add them, and have those discussions that way.
Hey, Amber,
Honestly,
this is, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Julie.
Sorry, this is Julie. Since I'm the other parent rep, I wonder if I could prepare just a few bullets for people to respond to at the next meeting. I do think it's helpful to have something to look at and give feedback on.
Sure. Yeah, Julie, if there are things that we have not discussed that are not already in the training that
Okay.
you think should be, yeah, go ahead and send those in as well. Let's say by our meeting is on Tuesday, could we have it by Friday, or do you need the weekend? How about Monday? I saw some grimaces.
I can do Friday.
Okay, if you can do Friday, that would be great. If you need to do Monday, we can do that. And then again on Tuesday, I'll be presenting that list. We'll send it to everybody before that, and we'll present it during the public meeting and talk about incorporating it into the training at that point. Does that sound good? Okay, so then our next meeting will be next week, December 6th, Tuesday at 1 p.m. We will discuss the bulleted list of things that the parent representatives want in the training that are not already in the training. And we'll go from there. Does that sound good?
That sounds great, but I have a question for Paul.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask you 2 more questions before moving to public comment.
Okay, are we going to have any definitions? Are they working on that at all? Because that's really what's going to be a problem.
Let me check. I will say I've been on the road for 2 weeks. I was in Utah for a week, and then the first time since 2018, I actually took off work so I could to be with my family. So
Congratulations.
I will say I will double check. Otherwise, that's a great question, and I'll get back with you on that one. But I actually was on a cruise last week with family, and so I didn't have service, and it was very nice to be with family. So I will check.
Probably delightful.
Say again.
I'm sure it was delightful.
It was great being with family. Always is.
Yeah.
So we had a couple of Michelle, you used to have a question, and I see, and I don't know how to tell who other has the hand up that we want to check on.
Jamie, I believe, is first.
I just had a question to confirm with, I know that you all work like as a team at the DOE, but can we as a work group get, or maybe just as parents, sorry, I am, the holiday is like completely killed me and it's a Monday, so I'm exhausted. Is Commissioner Diaz fully aware of all of the concerns that we have as a work group? And is there any discussions that he's had about joining to clarify, or is he just relying on his team for that?
Well, let me jump in and say Commissioner Diaz is involved in all of our work at the department. That's part of the beauty of working for him. He is such a hands-on commissioner. So all of this information he certainly has, and that's why I think Michelle Michelle Beavers, I think, was even saying was coming up with this. I think she and Amber, I think this is what is so great is I'm essentially saying that now there's two lists, right? So all this information Commissioner Diaz has, let me assure you, plus other members of senior leadership. And so it'll be, I think even he would also get the list that you guys would say of kind of parsing out if I got this right, if I got it wrong, please share with me. What I'm hearing though, kind of a next step is to take this to say, these are things that go in the training, and I wouldn't cut them out. I would say, here are a list of other concerns, like where this says, here's a problem, like here are problems or concerns that are ongoing that may need to be addressed outside of the training or whatever, but I would still capture that plus whatever you want in the training. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're gonna have, that bifurcated list. And I will say he gets all of this information. So he's amazing at how he's able to get all this and digest it, but I don't know when he sleeps.
Thank you for the clarification. I liked the idea of having like the bullet points. I just want to make sure that both sides, media specialists and parent representatives, and just everybody's voices are heard, and that he understands where everyone is coming from, and that we're not, I'll use the word disappointing, but that's probably not the right word, but just that we're doing what we were tasked to do.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jamie.
Okay, at this time, it's 1:52. We're going to go ahead and move into public comment. If you are a member of the public and you wish to say something today, go ahead and raise your little icon hands and we will unmute you one by one. We're going to, let's see, we probably have enough time. Yeah, I think we're okay. Okay, Jennifer, go ahead.
Hi, so I'm just a parent, well, not just, but I'm a parent of a high schooler. I'm a 17-year-old, and I just want to voice as a concerning parent that as part of the parental rights, I think that we have the right to know what our child has access to. And when I send my child to school, I assume she is safe from what is pornographic or sexually explicit material. And if it is to be there, but an opt-in, but behind the library's counter with an opt-in, that would be greatly appreciated, because if she wants to read a book, I want to know what that material is before she reads that, and have a conversation with her, or say, no, it's mature matter that is not appropriate for you. So I just, and I think it was Ms. Smith that said, when you're talking about the internet hardcore porn as opposed to literature as a porn to passages in the book, if you were to take that passage and make it into a movie, would it be hardcore porn? And I think in some of these books, it would be. So I think that needs to be kept in mind as well. And if we want to continue to build those bridges of trust with the community and parents, I think doing the opt-in forms needs to really, really, really be an important point to give us the rights back, so we know what our children are exposed to and what they are reading. And that is it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jennifer. We'll go to the next one. NLTE, NLTE, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you all for your time. This is Bruce Friedman from No Left Turn in Education. My 15-year-old son is finishing his day at Ridgeview High. He is forbidden from accessing the public school library until I feel it's been tidied up. I have a list of over 3,600 titles that I believe have concerning content. Our libraries have more than a little poison in them. Think of it like a recipe for a happy, well-developed child. How much poison is it okay to give them? Whether it's porn, critical race theory, social emotional learning, fluid gender, pick your poison. None of it is okay for my boy. I expect this team and all like it to clean up this mess, or like I'm doing locally, we'll take them down one book at a time. I will perform 3,600 challenges and overwhelm your awful, awful procedures and policies. Do better. We're counting on you. Have a good day.
Thank you for your comments. Jen Cousins, go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I found it incredibly frustrating and infuriating to have to listen to you, Amber, apologize to these bigoted women like Michelle Beavers and Jennifer Pippin, who have quite publicly put out on the internet how much they hate LGBTQ children like my own. You know, Michelle Beavers might have 6 kids, good for her. I've got 4. I know how to raise kids too, Michelle.
Amber, I don't really think it's fair for you to allow this to go on. I have not been
the
anything on
way
the
that
internet
you
about
do,
being
and
anti anything.
over me right now. Thank you very much. These women don't get to decide how to raise everybody else's children. And I know that you're not only getting emails from No Left Turn in Education or Moms for Liberty, because I know that there's a whole hell of a lot of more sane women out there, parents, moms, and dads, who don't believe that our children need to be policed like this. I find it disgusting the way that these people keep focusing on pornography. Maybe they have a problem and not everybody else. Also, Michelle, CRT is not an issue here. So get off that high horse. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Public commenters, if we could refrain from attacking members of the work group on a personal level, that we would really appreciate that. Carrie T, go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to speak as a concerned parent and an aunt. I would urge you to use the parental opt-ins. A lot of parents are not always aware of the materials. Not all of them are as involved as the rest of us. They don't have the time, whatever. And I'm speaking from personal experience as a child in my life that has been affected by these books, that followed the directives in these books to download a sex app and meet up with an adult, a pedophile. But luckily their father caught on to what was going on. That is the reality of these books. No one here, no one that I know here has any hate for LGBTQ. My best friend is gay and I love him. That has nothing to do with any of this. Children shouldn't be learning from books at school how to meet up with adults for sex. That's not right. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Tina, go ahead. Tina, you can go ahead.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
That's the first time I've used this. You know, I wasn't going to speak until, I really wanted to hear this. It was the first time I've listened. I know a little bit about it. I'll thank you first for what you're doing because it needs to be done. I'm going to pray for everybody here that you're able to work through this. And what I heard today, some of the back and forth, that has to be done offline or something, but work ahead through it. I mean, you're doing so much and we're not always all going to agree, right? We're not. But I think maybe we don't all agree and that's where it is. But hurting the kids like this just cannot happen. Nobody cares about the public library. Nobody cares about the college library. They're adults. But we care about our kids, especially our young ones. And what I've read, and I've read a lot of these books, and I can say that I did start reading them because I wanted to know. you can compare it to whatever you want. I don't think the pornography I read isn't a little bit of porn. I have read some that didn't have a lot, but there was some. But I've read really bad things. And that can't be in the school at all. And the second thing I want to say is I hope that those two people that spoke before, I don't know what side they're on. I'm out here, so I'm a good person looking in. That kind of conversation can't take place. It can't take place on the phone line, and it can't take place in these meetings. And that's my opinion with what I heard today and the parental. I mean, hopefully you have every right to cut them off. And even me, if I'm out of line, I don't care. That's it.
All right, thank you, Tina. At this time, I don't see any other, Christy, go ahead.
Sorry. Just two things to clarify. The parents working on those slides, that is within the sunshine law? Okay. I don't know.
I don't know either. Yeah,
okay. Only because that was brought up earlier. So I don't want them not to be successful in what we're trying to do here.
Absolutely.
But I also want to make sure that we are following the law. And then, Amber, can you just give me a little background? When we left Tallahassee, I was under the impression that the draft, I mean, yes, we were open to the public that day, but I did not come back and discuss it with anybody. So can you give us some advice about that? Because people are asking us, how's the work group going? Blah, blah, you know, are we saying out loud what things are happening?
I mean, the meetings are all public. So anything that occurs in a meeting, I mean, everything's public, everything's open in Florida. So yes, you may share with anyone who's interested. I've had a number of people email me and ask me for the slides from the meetings or for the draft training, because it was presented, at a public meeting. The public is allowed to see that, for the recordings from the workshop. So yes, you are allowed to discuss those things. And just as a clarification about the sunshine laws, we'll send an email follow-up about what is allowed and what's not allowed as far as following the sunshine laws. So thank you for that question.
Perfect.
Okay, any last comments or thoughts? All right, we're going to go ahead and shut it down then. It is past 2 o'clock. I will see you all again next week on Tuesday. And then parent representatives, if you can get me those bulleted lists, hopefully by Friday, if not first thing Monday, would be really appreciated, so that I can put them all together and we can discuss them for Tuesday. Thank you all again so much for attending today's meeting, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Amber.